Hello everyone, Thyworm here, with a video talking about the future of Last Epoch. Is it a bright future, or will the game be dead on arrival? Let's find out. If you enjoy Last Epoch opinion videos, consider subscribing. Also, I'd like to pitch my second channel focusing on indie games, link in the card and description. I'm putting out a fair bit of content over there, so for more Thyworm, that's me, check it out. Due to the nature of the topic, this video is fairly speculative. I will use sources where I can, trying to back up my statements, but this video is mostly me giving you my thoughts about what I think is likely to happen in the upcoming period. I've been playing and covering Last Epoch for more than 3 years now. I've seen what 11th Hour can and cannot do, and I'll be using that knowledge to make assumptions and statements. In order to better predict the future, we should look at the past. For more than 3 years, Last Epoch has had a fairly steady development cycle. Every couple of months a new patch would release, bringing typically significant changes to the game and adding new content. Last Epoch has grown from a 4-act campaign game with 4 classes and very few skill trees to a 9-act campaign with 5 classes, 12 subclasses, quite an extensive monolith of fate and skill trees for almost every skill. In short, the last 3 years have been used to realize most of the vision the developers had for Last Epoch, taking the community feedback into account as well and changing aspects of the game accordingly. What's also happened, and this isn't brought up very often by other creators, is of course the sale of part of the company, around 20% so far, to Tencent. Regardless of what you think about this acquisition, fact is that EHG now has considerable funding. Previously, they didn't, and not adding content was a financial risk, because people might stop purchasing the game. Early access was funded by game sales after all. That implicitly meant Last Epoch had to keep the game interesting, and they have for the most part, by releasing new patches every couple of months. After Tencent gave them millions of dollars, potentially tens of millions of dollars, that situation has changed completely. Not only could they hire more people, which they've done, it also at least temporarily alleviated the financial pressure, and this is important for the devs' recent decision making. The last patch 11th Hour Games released was the current patch 0.8.5, and this was March 18th. That is 3 months ago by now. Under normal circumstances, we would get a new patch this month. But as I just mentioned, circumstances have changed. Apart from pleasing the community, there is no incentive to release a patch right now, and Last Epoch won't release a patch right now. As a matter of fact, they're not going to release a patch anytime soon for a significant time. At the earliest, we can expect a patch September-ish, which could be October or even November. There are 3 reasons for this. I've already mentioned one, which is the financial incentive to release a patch which just isn't there anymore. Second reason was given by Mike in one of the dev streams lately, saying that releasing a patch simply takes a lot of time and effort. I've been working in IT for many years now, and I can concur with this. Releasing something isn't just developing it or testing it. The release process also involves a lot of alignment between various teams, a ton of testing, additional bug fixing because you broke something that worked in the current patch, etc, etc. Counting all of these things, Mike estimated that releasing a patch takes around 2 to 3 weeks away from development. And that is probably the happy flow. If you truly break something in the game, which hasn't happened for a while now, but patches used to delete players' stashes, for example, then you have a real problem on your hand that you need to solve. A Prio 1 incident, we would call that where I'm working, and this completely destroys any development capacity for new stuff you might have, and it can completely cannibalize your teams until this is solved. Third reason for waiting with a patch is that Last Epoch currently is basically 2 games, or at least 2 clients. We're playing on one of those 2, the offline single-player version, but there is another version, the online multiplayer version. Not only can this be confusing for basically anyone involved, such as developers who may occasionally develop something and then check it into the GitHub of the wrong version or something, but it's also putting a significant strain on your organization, having to keep track of 2 different products that ultimately need to end up as a single product. You're doing double testing, double development, double administration, double code bases, a lot of doubles, and this is not efficient. One of the goals stated in the May development article is that both single player and multiplayer versions of the game are becoming a singular version of the game, but this clearly is a massive undertaking, something that will likely cause a ton of smaller issues which need to be addressed, and this is something that is going to take time, which is why the devs are taking their time. Now that we've covered why it's going to take a while before the next patch, let's talk about the content of that next patch. In the June developer update, it was stated that the next patch will be multiplayer. To no one's surprise but the devs, it seems. I'm not sure if there was any real possibility that they would not release multiplayer, honestly, with everything that's been said and all the reasons I stated above, but for some reason the devs didn't want to commit to the idea until a few days ago. Maybe it's just some marketing, I don't know. It seems so obvious that multiplayer is the next big thing and it brings so many advantages that it would be weird to release something else first. Mike was very vague about it as well at first, about the next patch, only saying it will be something significant. But what else is still on the roadmap that is significant, if not multiplayer? A few things actually, but we'll get into those. So, we have multiplayer coming next patch, just like a focus on combat feel and optimizing the performance of the game. That is the summary of that wall of text from the devs. What else is still on the roadmap though? The favor system that exists, at least in the minds of some of the devs, as far as we know, this is apparently a meta progression system independent from your character. That is basically all we know. There are 3 more chapters in the campaign, that's still in the cards, and unfortunately more dungeons. Let's just hope they're better than the previous 2, which isn't a tall order to be fair. There's one more system, Lost Memories, specific stories of interesting characters throughout time, allowing you to earn unique benefits. And we have a few subclasses left, but Mike also repeatedly stated that the design for new subclasses like the Falconeer, Warlock and Rune Master hasn't started yet. Regarding endgame, it's unlikely there will be more endgame apart from dungeons. Kane said in a dev update that they're happy with the variety in endgame content. I'm reading this as the devs saying that there is enough endgame in Last Epoch for a 1.0 release, something that I actually agree with. There is plenty to do for new players. You can easily roam around in the monolith for 100 or 200 hours, because only after that the system starts to become really problematic and endgame becomes very still. Just because I have reached that point and you may have reached that point doesn't mean endgame is bad. It is fine, it's great for new players, it is just not sustainable and repeatable in the long run. But it won't affect the launch or the reviews. So, now that we know next patch and we know the roadmap, it is time to make a few assumptions. What are we really looking at in terms of features and timelines going with a complete happy flow scenario? In September we will get multiplayer, or the vast majority of it. Maybe trading is added later, maybe some other stuff is too, but at least the game will be a singular client. Given the focus on performance and combat feel, let's say that is also largely fixed in September. And fine, let's suppose on top of this the devs implement another campaign chapter. That seems something you can develop pretty much as a standalone project, so you shouldn't be too dependent on both clients as long as you're testing with the singular client in the end. What's going to happen for sure though is that multiplayer is going to temporarily break the game. It may be for a few hours, it may be for a few days, it may be for a few weeks. No one in recent video gaming history managed to have a proper multiplayer launch because it's just extremely hard to pull off. Last Epoch is a rookie in this regard, as a company at least, and I'm fairly certain there will be issues, despite the community testing, the load testing, all of that stuff. It's just too complicated to foresee everything. Add to that a large influx of players using various PC systems, network providers, other software and locations, and it will inevitably lead to issues somewhere in the pipeline. Whether it's authentication, server stability, latency or optimization or class balancing, multiplayer will break aspects of the game that require fixing, so let's give the devs a month to do that. It is October now. Let's say we have a 3-month patch cycle like we used to. We could now get another big patch in December with a subclass, probably the remainder of the missing multiplayer features, another dungeon and one big still to be implemented system, either the favor system or Lost Memories. I think the favor system makes more sense and I'll get to that. So by the end of the year, in Happy Flow, we completed most of the roadmap features. I think it's a safe assumption that the devs will leave some new features for the actual release, so let's give them another 3 to 4 months. It is now April 2023, the game launches. It will have everything we already talked about, but at the launch we get the remaining subclasses to get the veterans excited, because let's face it, endgame will not change anymore before launch. So the only way to keep the veterans interested is by saving 1 or 2 subclasses till launch, which is going to happen. The final chapters of the story will be added, because that can also wait until launch. We will get one more system in place, the Lost Memories, and then we're done. I think it's very unlikely we're immediately going into a cycle that has a new feature that is not currently on the roadmap. It is much more likely that there will be a cycle at the very start, which involves one of the endgame systems, and then from a lore and gameplay perspective, I feel the Lost Memories are the most likely candidate for that, given that these are separate stories. It's not hard to see this as a league mechanic. It's something new for returning players, and it seems to not interfere too much with other systems. All those things combined make it a good option in my opinion for a cycle mechanic, the Lost Memories cycle. And then we're hoping for a smooth launch, of course, with raving reviews. And it means that after 4 years of early access, Last Epoch finally launches. And I think from that moment onwards, it can only go uphill, honestly, as long as they keep listening to the community feedback and stop making dungeons. Now, you might say, but Thyworm, did you not see Diablo 4 with the gameplay and the release date? Dear viewer, I certainly did, and I will make a new video about what that could mean for Last Epoch. If you already have strong opinions about that topic, put them in the comments and I will discuss them as well. For now, I hope you enjoyed this speculative video. Feel free to correct me if you got more info than I do. Leave a comment down below. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more Last Epoch content. It helps out a lot. See you all soon. Love you all. Bye bye.